Hi, Spoutlorians. Abdul here with a bonus episode from our friends over at the Critshow. For those of you who listened to the crossover that we did with them over the summer and like that, we have some great news for you because they just launched their brand new campaign, Clockwinders. I am personally so stoked. I just listened to the first episode and it's so sick. The Crit Crew plays a brand new set of characters in a brand new setting, brand new world, brand new game system. And I don't want to drop too many details in here because I don't want to spoil anything for you guys. But it's I love it. It's like heavy science fantasy vibes. It's like if Mistborn meets like Treasure Planet, same kind of like mystery vibes that you had in like Mistborn, and like the technology is kind of like it's kind of Treasure Planet-esque. Anyone who doesn't know what that is was not an 11-year-old in the early 2000s, I guess. But anyway, I'm stoked for you guys to hear what they've got in store. Their first episode is about to play. It's great. And if you like it, head over to the critshowpodcast.com or Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you listen to podcasts and get subscribed because the campaign is starting. The campaign just started. And you've got a bunch of adventure in store for you over there. All right. And without further ado, on to the episode.
The Crit Show contains elements of horror, fantasy violence, and adult language. Content warnings can be found in the episode description.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Crit Show, Season 7, The Clockwinders. This is the first episode of our new campaign where we are launching into a new story and a new game system, which means we should do a brief introduction of our player characters. If you want to hear the full details, you can go back and listen to the Session 0. That was the episode that came out before this, where we actually go through this process together. But for now, let's hit the highlights so that we can progress into our story. So, joining me around the table as players, we have...
I'm Megan, and I'm playing Maxine Hollis.
I'm Tass, and I will be playing Einon Kerning.
And I'm Rev, and I'm playing Kade Atwater.
So, we are playing the Clockwinders. It is based in the Fate system. Fate character creation is a little bit more free form than Powered by the Apocalypse, which we're used to. So, let's hit some of the key points here. Megan, can you tell us about your character? Tell us about their aspects, what they're good at, their general description and vibe.
Sure. So I'm playing Maxine, and she is a young woman in her early 20s. My high concept is Clockwinder legacy. She has a grandmother who was a clockwinder, kind of when it was still an important job. And she holds the position in high regard. And it's one of those, she's always known that she wants to do this. She has chin-length blonde hair, bright green eyes and freckles, a white blouse with big old lantern sleeves ending in brown leather gloves, a blue bodice over the top with embroidered flowers, gray trousers and boots, a small toolkit on her belt, and she carries a lantern. My trouble is too many buttons, so she's just somebody who can be easily provoked because she has a lot of opinions about things, and so it's easy to kind of get her riled up. My aspects are slow to trust, leave it to the professionals, and Einon inspires me to persevere. She's really great at like lore and investigating, researching, and kind of working with knowledge. My pitch for this character was somebody who would get 100% on the written exam and then fail the practical. So she, in theory, she's really good at this job and she knows everything about it, but doesn't have a lot of real world experience.
Perfect. Tass, tell us about Einon.
Einon is an adventuring scholar. That is, in fact, my high concept. He's very much a hunter and an explorer, but he is extremely interested in all of the Fae folk and magic and how the people that have come from these other worlds are interacting with ours. His trouble is that he is called the Boogeyman. Since he is an accomplished hunter, that also means that he's had to deal with some of the Fae folk that are a little more devious, a little more mean, and so that has given him a little bit of a name where the Fae folk live. My aspects lean into some of this, like being an experienced hunter, having keen reactions, and the idea of I should have been there and next time I will be. He is of medium height, mid-30s, in very good shape. He's got a big admiral mustache, constantly windswept hair. If you are imagining Tarzan's dad, you are pretty much correct. Most of his clothes are very practical, kind of travel and hunting, kind of adventuring gear, but he does very often have a very nice burgundy vest as well. He likes people, so he wants to rub shoulders with the people in the towns that he visits. He's very good at noticing his surroundings. He's very good with a bow. He's got a lot of lore knowledge, and he's very athletic. So my stunts lean into some of that as well. Being able to know people, being able to shoot well, and having on-hand knowledge about magic-y things that might be going on.
Excellent. And Rev, tell us about Kade.
Yeah, our Kade Atwater, or Kade to his friends, is the mechanist. Machines just make sense to him. He understands how to fix them, how to make them work. It's like they speak to him. His trouble is, how hard could it be? Because Kade has really only done 2 things in his life, and he was very naturally good at both of them. And so he takes it for granted that that's just what happens when you pick up a new thing. Like, I'll be good at this. How hard can it be? And that has a question mark at the end, not a period. He is in his early 20s. About 6 feet tall, kind of lank but muscular. He has brown boots and fingerless gloves, green pants, a blue tank top with suspenders, and kind of wild brown hair and some scruff on his face, and then a set of complicated goggles on his forehead that, have magnifying glasses and different stuff like that. It actually just kind of occurred to me, he very well could be a variant of Sid from Final Fantasy, looking at him.
Nice.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Some other things about him. He notices what's out of place. He is wary of authority, and he's got Maxine's back. And I think the other noticeable thing about him is that he has got a brass and copper construct with him named Smee. Smee is a big orb with a single eye and then 4 long legs that can kind of get low to the ground or stand high. And then he's also got a couple of handles and little storage spaces on him, but he follows Kade around.
I feel like his trouble, the how hard can it be, is my real life trouble.
I think that's accurate. All right, so with a description of who our characters are, let's bring you guys into the world. So, Tass just made it look like he was being born.
Tass just mimed being born into the world. Oh, gross.
And I am your doctor.
Where did you get all that jelly from?
Smack my ass and let's get started.
You are all being born, and I am your OBGYN. Let's do this. So, on the world of Cadvini, in the city of Sun's Edge, we find the Dawn Palace. The Dawn Palace is the headquarters of the Clockwinders, this ancient organization of adventurers, mechanists, warriors, who have maintained the devices that keep the planet tidally locked. These devices, the movement cores, are unspeakably old, and nobody actually knows where they originally came from or what they were originally meant to do. Only that for some hundreds of years, they have kept the planet in tidal lock, meaning that one side is always sunward, One side is always night side, and there is a belt in the middle where everybody can survive. The Dawn Palace is the most sunward habitation on the habitable part of the planet, and it's where we find the three of you. The Dawn Palace itself is an enormous Baroque palace occupied by just under 100 people, staff, instructors, clockwinders, though it could hold a lot more. But currently we find the three of you outside of the palace, slightly to the east, with the glyph stones. The glyph stones are these monolithic stone structures, think kind of Stonehenge, that are, again, extremely ancient, older than anybody knows. They predate the palace. Nobody knows who carved them, who placed them here. And they have these glyphs etched into them that provide lore of the world that predates written records. But these glyphs are somehow constantly morphing and changing. Not all of them have been translated. People argue about how to translate or interpret the ones that have been translated. And you are standing before them with Chief Elaine Forben. She is the Chief Clockwinder Custodian, the head of the organization. She is young, like in her early 20s, and you all would know somewhat inexperienced because of it. But she's dedicated to the role, and at her behest, you are standing here with her, watching the stones, silently and still, waiting for something. And then one of the most sunward stones begins to combust just a bit, and she points, and she says, "We're moving. Not much, but bit by bit, this world is starting to rotate again." And she turns to face the three of you. "I know that we're ill-equipped to handle this. I know that we don't have the capability that the Clockwinders once did, but boy, if we don't get out there and try and figure this out, nobody will."
Chief Forben, how many of these have caught fire?
She kind of gestures, and I think you can see that several of them are smoldering. And she says, "Well, none have been destroyed, but bit by bit, the sun touches them more and more. It's hard to say how long it'll be before one of them is consumed. There's so much we don't know about the glyph stones, it's hard to say what they can survive."
Kade looks back over his shoulder towards the town and then, like, at the stones. Do you have any idea how much this is moving closer every day? Is it noticeable?
Well, noticeable enough that I was able to time that one out for dramatic effect.
So soon? We got to go soon because, I mean, that much every day, that's the city eventually.
Eventually, I think it's the entire belt. I don't think we're dealing with a matter of hours or days, but a year, maybe 2, maybe less. Tough to say whether this is going to accelerate or going to slow.
Hey, maybe it'll slow once we find a few and get them up and running. Like, maybe we'll slow it down before we stop it, assuming that not assuming that's what we're going to do. We're going to stop it. We're going to stop it.
Forgive me for asking, but why we three here and no one else?
Well, the reasons are multifaceted, I guess. For starters, you're all capable of useful and varied things. You all seem to have the motive to fix things. I mean, we have other Clockwinders here, but nobody's done tours of the movement core. Nobody here has any more experience than you. At least, nobody that's still in any shape to go out and handle it.
Yes, fair point. I admit I'm woefully under-equipped myself to fix anything, but I've seen a fair amount of Cadvini. I joined up with you all just for the chance to go out and explore more, so I would certainly be happy to blaze a trail.
Exactly. You know the world. She gestures to Maxine. You know our ways. And she gestures to Kade. And you know how to fix shit.
I mean, the three of us kind of make a Clockwinder.
Yes.
She kind of chuckles, but she looks kind of saddened by that statement. It's a damn shame that we've come to a point where we need 3 people to make what one of our number should have been capable of.
I mean, technically, we're all individually Clockwinders. It's not like we're really a third.
Correct, yes. You are all living individuals and ranking Clockwinders. And
No, I'm just saying, it's not like we only have a third of the knowledge. Like, sure, okay, maybe not all of us have been out in the world and explored as much as Einon, but that doesn't mean that we don't have the capability to handle it. And I'm sure, Einon, if you got out there and started messing with things, the training would kick in, and you would be able to fix things great. It wouldn't be a hindrance at all that you haven't done it before.
I hold an enormous wrench out to him.
Pass.
To hit Maxine with.
I smile at the chief. You're right, she knows her stuff.
Look, I'm not going to pretend that this is the best possible option that could exist, but it is the best possible option that I can come up with from the cards that we've been dealt.
I think it makes perfect sense.
Yes, and I pull them both in by the shoulder, just hug them close. I think we can do this just fine, actually. And bad comes to worse. Sun's edge is roasting while we're out there and have a little more time.
She chuckles. Well, unfortunately for you, I'm going to have you get started in the danger zone here.
When do we leave?
Well, you don't have to. The first movement core is here, at the palace.
Like here, where we are now.
Well, not precisely where we are now. Come on, let's head back to the palace. I'll hand you over to Hector, and he'll be able to inform you further.
Sounds great. Let's go.
Ads!
Well, you heard him. Time for ads. Unless, of course, you're in our Patreon, and then it's just back to the story.
The chief leads the way, marching you all from the stones back towards the palace, which she does not enter. She leads you through the grounds, which are as sparsely populated as you've grown accustomed to being here. But she leads you towards the clock tower. It is one of the tallest structures here in the city, the tallest structure at the palace, which is not to say that it's like a skyscraper or anything, but it's like 50 feet tall. Clock faces on 4 sides that are keeping the time, which is invaluable in a world where the sun does not rise or set.
In all of this, that's only just occurred to me that we're sleeping through no change. I don't know why that hasn't entered my brain until this moment.
Yep. The part of the world you are in will determine whether or not it's light or dark, not the time of day.
Wild.
But she leads you over towards the base of the clock tower, right as it chimes 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and leads you over towards an older gentleman, wrinkled face, gray hair. He is somewhat stocky, like you can tell that he was well built back in his day and has held on to some of it. And you know this man, it is Hector, Hector Hulano, the groundskeeper of the Dawn Palace, the last of the truly active Clockwinders. He is one of the last people alive who actually did maintenance tours at the movement cores, who did hands-on repairs and has dealt with ether. And he is looking up at the face of the clock as it chimes. You can hear just that large bell ringing up above. But his attention diverts to you all as you approach.
I run up to him as we get close. Hector, there's a movement core here at the palace.
Indeed there is.
You knew? I've been bothering you for weeks for something to work on, and you knew there was a movement core here and you didn't say anything?
A whole movement core.
You weren't ready. And to be perfectly frank, I'm not sure you're ready now, but the chief has it in her head that we're out of time, and I'm not inclined to argue with her. And he gives the chief a little nod, and she acknowledges it.
Well, sure, our Katie's not ready, but you could have told me.
Have you both ever considered your bedside manner?
I'm not a doctor. Damn it, Jim.
Well, all right then, Hector, my darling. Are we going down together, or are you just giving us instruction?
He again looks at the chief, and she just nods wordlessly to him. And he looks at all of you, and he stands up a little more upright, like your coach, like your teacher. I will not be assisting you with this endeavor. This is going to be a test of your capabilities. As much as it is something that needs to be done, it is something that we need from you to demonstrate that you are capable of embarking on this voyage. The movement core is inside of the tower, and he gestures at the giant front doors of the clock tower. The whole tower is like stonework and wood. It's all closed up. There aren't any clear points of entry. It's in bad shape. Parts of the stone are quite weathered, and the wood looks like it's pretty rough. You'll have to find a way inside. Those doors have been stuck for longer than anyone can remember.
All right. And Kade lets out a piercing whistle, and a few moments later you hear clunk, 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 and it's Smee coming down the street. Hey, bud, we got work to do. I'm going to let you make every decision about him.
I'm going to do every sound of acknowledgement from the robot. Hector looks Smee over with a little bit of curiosity and admiration, as I think you've noticed he always does. Hector likes Smee. He is fascinated by Smee. But despite that, he gives a little shake of his head. I don't know that your construct's going to be able to do the job. We've been trying to get into this tower for decades. Movement Core hasn't seen maintenance in generations, though you're welcome to utilize every tool at your disposal.
Just a guess that the structural integrity of the tower is probably important.
Well, insofar as if the tower were to come down, the movement core might be damaged beyond repair.
It's also an important part of our history, Einon.
Well, I just mean one way or another, we're going to have to make a hole.
Looking over this tower, are there any windows or anything else other than these sealed doors at the bottom and the clock faces at the top?
How about we roll some dice?
Yeah.
Okay.
Why don't you go ahead and roll plus notice? So this is going to be an action. It sounds to me like this is going to be an overcome action, which is just to surmount an obstacle with your skills. So why don't you roll to overcome with notice? And I think this is going to be of fair difficulty. This is something that nobody has been able to figure out for generations if there's another way in here. So that is a +2, difficulty.
Okay.
So you are going to roll your 4 fate dice. You are going to total up the pluses, minuses, and blanks to end up with a net number, and you are going to add your notice skill to that.
Okay. So that is nothing on my die, but +2 because of my notice skill.
All right. So you have tied the difficulty. In the case of a tie, there are a couple of options. You might have a success at a minor cost, or you might have just a partial success. You only get some of what you want.
As he's walking around the tower and looking, I think I actually pull out a notebook and I start writing in it. And I'm saying it out loud as I'm writing down, Kade Atwater circles the tower, his keen eyes piercing every crack of the ancient structure.
Hector's like, what is that? What are you doing? What is that device you have? What is this action you're taking? He grabs the notebook out of your hand and he's like, what is this?
Flings it sunward.
Writing? Written records?
I'll show you later, dear boy.
I think this one's going to be a success at a minor cost. So, as you circle the tower, you can see that one of those clock faces, as the minute hand ticks by, as you watch the minute hand tick into its next position, right as it hits, there's just a little bit of shudder, a little bit of a wobble to the clock face that leaves just a slight gap at the very top of it where something may be able to wedge in or create space.
I'll stop and wave everybody over. Okay, so it's not exactly a way in, but there is, if you watch the minute hand on this face, when it hits a new minute, there's a shudder, and there's just a little bit of a gap at the top. I mean, I couldn't fit into it. None of us could fit into it, but there is an opening that's created for a couple seconds there each minute.
Ooh, okay. Thinking about that being our entry point, could I have gotten any indication of if we were to enter through that space, how viable of an option it would be when we get through the other side? Or what we would need to be careful of?
Yeah, so I think this is going to be lore, because lore deals with what you know or what you can research. And I think this is going to be create an advantage, because you are trying to either create an aspect or gain a benefit from an aspect that already exists based on what you could have studied or learned. So why don't you roll to create an advantage with lore? And I think this is just going to be of average difficulty. Even though nobody's been in here for generations, they have something from the last time they were in here. They built the fucking thing, so they know how it was constructed and how many floors there are and stuff.
Blueprints they kept. Books, not so much.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So just trying to beat a 1.
Okay. A 1 on my die, and then I have a +5 to lore. 6.
Okay. So not only do you succeed, but you succeed with style.
Ooh.
Which means you exceed that number by 3 or more. So you reveal an aspect about the clock tower. This aspect is called, it's a long way down, parentheses, or up. And you know from your research that the tower has 3 levels. The movement core would be at ground level. While it was in use, these levels were easily navigable. With nobody having been in here in some generations, hard to say how that might have changed, what the condition inside may be. But you do know how many floors it has and that it is of substantial verticality. And you get 2 free invokes on this aspect, having succeeded with style. So an invoke is something that you can utilize. Normally, an invoke costs a fate point. You would spend one of your fate points in order to invoke an aspect. In this case, you get 2 for free. But basically, if you make a roll and it comes up short, and you can think of a way to justify hey, this aspect could help me in this scenario. You can use one of those invokes and either just add 2 to the roll, or you can re-roll all of your dice. You can also use an invoke to add 2 to the difficulty of somebody else's roll if that's justifiable.
Nice.
So if you just really want to clown on one of your teammates as they try to climb up there, you can make their shit harder.
Okay. Okay, well, I know that there were at least 3 levels in there at some point. Obviously, it's not really been kept up that great, but in how much the outside has fallen into disrepair, if the inside is anywhere near the same, the movement core would have to be at the bottom. I mean, otherwise, it definitely would have fallen or something by now, and I mean, I guess I don't know about how this works, but maybe it being next to the planet is important. So I think if we go up to the top, we'll have to go all the way down to the bottom.
All right, so we just need someone who's good at climbing things, exploring unknown places, and I just slowly start to look.
We both stare at Einon.
They look at where I was, and I'm already like 5 feet up the side of the building. What? What's that?
Nothing, keep going.
Yeah, I am absolutely going to start climbing the side of this.
Okay, I think this is certainly going to be an overcome. My thought is with athletics, and this seems kind of difficult to me. You're just going to free solo a 50-foot clock tower from the outside, so I feel like you're going to be trying to beat a 3 here.
Okay.
You know what I was not expecting about the fate dice?
What?
For the plus and the minuses to like be on a corner with each other, like they don't alternate on the die.
Yeah, it is bizarre.
And
they kind of make a ring. It's like the
ring.
the planet.
It's like the ring.
Oh.
That was a great joke. Take a fate point.
I'm taking it.
I made the joke.
Nope, I'm taking it.
Everybody gets one.
It was a 3, which is I rolled a -1, and I have 4 to my athletics.
All right, that would be a tie. So you can either get what you want at a minor cost, or you can get a lesser version, a partial success.
Can I use one of those shiny little invokes that just got presented?
You absolutely can. Those are directly related to the fact that this tower be tall. So you can either just add a 2 to the roll, which will get you to a success, or you could re-roll all your dice if you wanted to gamble on the success with style.
Oh, that's tempting. No, I'm just gonna do the +2, which will get me into a success.
Okay.
And how does that work with invokes? Is it like Megan made those? Do we ask her permission, or are they just on the table and like we as a group are like, yeah, you should do that, or someone just be like, I'm doing it. Screw you all.
Well, I would never encourage that sort of hostility among the players.
I will. Ask me.
But no, it is an aspect that is tied to the environment, so like anybody can utilize it.
Anyone like utilizing the environment.
Yes. And I mean, technically, like, you can invoke somebody else's aspects for your own gain if they're relevant. You could invoke aspects to like hinder other people. Like, yeah, you kind of can do whatever you want, but especially with one that like you revealed an aspect that existed about the environment, narratively, just that's fair game for everybody. You all know this about the place you are now, so naturally you can all make use of it.
Okay.
I think that's just kind of like with it being a free invoke too on something that is in the environment. It's just kind of like, this is a truth about the world. So makes sense.
All right, so Einon, that will bring you up to a success. So you are able to climb up and sort of lock yourself into a sturdy position up here with this clock face.
As I'm climbing too, I'm kind of shouting down to them. You know, it occurs to me that now knowing no one has been in here for who knows how long, that the guts of this thing must be in fairly good shape, actually, for the clocks to all have stayed as on time as they have. Isn't that interesting?
Is he? I can't hear a word he's saying. The wind's so strong up there.
From your perspective, you see him voicing things, but all you hear is just like...
Yeah, I can't hear him either, but his hair looks glorious.
Einon, how billowy are your clothes?
Enough to give me one physical strain trying to hold on.
I'm just saying, like, if Maxine went up there with her pronounced lantern sleeves, she would have just been like, she'd be flying away.
Flying squirrel my way up to the top.
So yeah, I mean, I get up to that side, and I will sidle up to that piece of the clock face and just wait and watch to see what it looks like up close when that piece shudders.
Yeah, you keep your eyes peeled as the minute hand ticks, and as it does, sure enough, you see just a little bit of a wobble. It looks a lot more pronounced from up here. Like, now that you're up here, this clock face is much larger than you, so that what looked like a sliver of a gap from the ground is, like, sizable from your perspective up here. There's plenty of room to wedge in. You could put, like, a fucking book in here if you wanted to.
Okay.
What's that?
An audio history. You could fit an oral history in here if you wanted to. A scant oral history.
And like structurally, that thing's going to wobble. I can get something in here. Does it seem like something that I could bend in a way to get myself and them in? Or am I going to have to like remove, like pull this whole piece off?
I think that could kind of go either way. The face of the clock does look to be made of metal. And it's not insubstantial. It would take some might either way to bend it or pry it off. The only consideration is, like, if your plan is to bend it, you might accidentally pop it off anyway, or you might bend it in a way that it isn't going back to how it used to be.
I shift myself around to yell down to them. All right, it looks viable. Would you like me to bust the thing open, or get you all up here and we work on it together?
I think he's yelling at us.
Einon, you have to write this on a piece of paper, fold it into a paper airplane, and just send it down.
It flutters just a little bit too east and roasts.
I mean, if you think you can get in and then get down to the door and tell us what the situation is on the other side, we might be able to help from here. Do we all want to try to scale this building? I'm going to look at Maxine as I say that. Yeah, that's kind of what I thought.
No, it makes more sense for us to do it down here. I think this is the entrance, and we're going to need to get this open anyway if the moving core is going to continue to be worked on in the future, so we might as well do it now, right? Like, we could all scale the tower. That's fine. I'm sure it'd be fine, but it just makes more sense, right?
No, we absolutely, all of us could do it.
Yeah.
But we don't need to.
No, we don't need to.
Hector is just, like, standing between you two, looking back and forth and grinning. It's just like, I'm wise to your bullshit.
Yeah, see if you can get eyes on the door and let us know what you see.
All right.
Be careful. It's a very delicate building.
Yes, I'll see what I can see. I don't think too hard about that and just turn around and try to wrench this little piece open. Just grab it with my hands and bend.
All right, Einon, I'm going to have you roll to overcome. This one's going to be with physique. And I hate to keep, like, punishing you, but I feel like this is a dangerous thing you're doing. You're trying to muscle open a metal panel at the top of a big tower, so I think we're going to be going for a 3 again.
Oof, okay. Hey, I know we just threw these invokes out.
You can spend the other one if you wish.
Because that would boost me from the 2 I just got to a 4.
Or you could re-roll them all.
Oh, that's so dangerous. No, yeah, I had a -1. I have a 3 in my physique. So yeah, that nets me 2. I think I'm just going to add the 2 to be safe.
How do you do this? Is this just like barehanded? Are you using an implement of any sort? And what are you trying to do to it? Like, are you just trying to bend it out of the way? Are you trying to pry it off?
Yeah, I am not using an implement. I think I'm waiting for that to kind of shift and shudder again in a way that I can just fully get like one whole arm and my other hand in to just pull the piece. I want to try to bend it on one kind of solid line so that in theory we'll be able to bend it back into place without snapping anything when the time comes.
Okay. Yeah, you get a segment of this clock face bent forward and out of the way, opening up a gap large enough for you to pass through. You've got... Oh, wait, I said it was like 1 o'clock and this is at the top. This clock face probably isn't functioning for the time being. You have to have interfered with the hour hand while you were at this.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, this side is going to be at least temporarily decommissioned.
Sure.
So you can see through this gap, by which I mean you can see pretty much darkness. There are just tiny pinpricks of like diffused light where you can see that maybe some very small cracks or holes in the tower are letting something through, but it is almost entirely dark inside.
Hey, Jake.
Yes, sir.
Light in this world, like...
I thought you said the verb to lighten. I thought you were like, lighten this world.
Yeah, no.
All right,
Too
come
dark
on.
so far.
Like
Ease
light
up, bro.
in this world, candles, flashlights, torches. What's the deal?
I
And
imagine-
torches would, not torches like British flashlight.
I
Yeah.
mean, I've got a lantern.
Yeah, I think like oil-based flame lighting, and then there are probably variations of lighting from ether.
Okay.
I don't think there is electric light.
Sure. Okay.
I'm going to pull out a lighter and just lean in as far as I can and start lighting that thing up, trying to see if I can see anywhere to even step out onto.
All right, you pull out a lighter and fire it up, and it doesn't do a lot of good for you in terms of lighting up the space. Very small flame, very large tower. But what you do see is the light of that flame reflected back to you from hundreds of little points in the upper rafters of this tower.
Oh, dear me. Metal or glass? I'm just gonna like wedge myself in to kind of sit down on the inner side, like leaning back against the piece I just bent out, and just start like stretching my foot out to see if I can find purchase of somewhere to step onto.
Yeah, you like stick your foot down trying to find something, and you do touch down on something that is a little bit like not totally rigid. Like it's got a little bit of flexibility and give to it. It's like fibers.
What in the heavens is this? I'm gonna like hang on to the bent piece of the clock face and lean down with my other hand to like brush my hand along and see what I think this is.
You brush your hand along this surface, pull it back, covered in webs, and those 100 points of light start to move.
Fuck!
And I think that's where we're going to end. Thank you all for joining us for the Clockwinders. You can find a link to the game and the setting in the show notes for this episode. If you are interested in further supporting the show, please check out our Patreon at patreon.com/thecritshow. If you do, you can get your name added to the list of people we thank for being patrons. People such as Michael Chow and Lily Sapp.
Ooh, look at that.
Thank you. Join us again next week for another episode of the Clockwinders. Everybody say bye.
Bye.
The Crit Show is a Critshow Studios production, edited and produced by Brandon Wentz, with music by Jake Purley. You can find more information about us at thecritshowpodcast.com. To keep up to date with upcoming live shows, contests, and other special events, follow us at The Crit Show on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. For even more weekly content, join us at patreon.com/thecritshow.
The Fable and Folly Network, where fiction producers flourish.
The first thing you need to know about the Vega Sci-Fi Adventure podcast is that you're not just listening to someone tell you a story. You are stepping into a world. And Vega Rex, the woman at the center of this saga, is currently sitting at the top of it. This is not by accident. For millennia, the country Vega calls home has been carefully honing the skills of its state-contracted killers, and these so-called holy warriors have gotten real good at taking down the world's worst criminals, or, as they would call it, cleansing. 400 kills into her career, Vega is the most decorated hunter there has ever been, and likely would have stayed that way if it had not been for him. An explosive encounter with a terrorist sets Vega on a path of revenge that is so thoroughly illegal that before this story is done, she will have risked it all. Life, limb, and love to satisfy her vengeance and keep her record of righteous kills perfect. My name is Ivoma Okoro, and I have so much more to tell you about this. Check out Vega, a sci-fi adventure podcast, anywhere you listen to them, because baby, I'm just getting started.
Spout Lore is proudly a Spout Lore Studios production.
A podcast for best friends by best friends.